Shopify grows with your business no matter how far or big you grow. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to grow your business no matter what stage you're in.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth,
where we're exploring all sorts of business topics. Experts from around the world join me, your host, Diane Helbig, for a conversation where they share their expertise with all of you. Take what you need when you need it. Featured on Inc.com, Forbes, and MSNBC's Your Business, this podcast is recognized as one of the best podcasts for small business, sales, leadership, social media, and more. When it comes to business, Accelerate Your Business Growth has got it covered. And now on with the show. My guest today is Scott Mautz. Scott is the author of The Mentally Strong Leader and the founder and CEO of Profound Performance, a keynote training and coaching company. Scott is a former Procter & Gamble executive who successfully ran 4 of the company's largest multi-billion-dollar businesses and has been named a CEO thought leader by the Chief Executives Guild and a top 50 leadership innovator by Inc.com. Thanks so much for being here today, Scott.
Thank you, Diane. Let's say we accelerate growth as much as we can today for all your listeners.
Let's do it. All right. Okay. Your new book is called The Mentally Strong Leader. And you say that mental strength is a leadership superpower. What is mental strength? And I guess, how is it different from other skills like emotional intelligence?
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, Diane, let's start with this. EQ, of course, is, we've been hearing about it so much for the last decade. It is the ability to get your emotions working for you versus against you. And it's absolutely important. And that's why we've been hearing so much about it everywhere for the last decade. But I believe mental strength is the next EQ, because EQ of the broader umbrella that is mental strength. Now, let me go to a more formal definition. Mental strength is the ability to productively regulate not only your emotions, like EQ, but also to regulate your thoughts and your behaviors over time, even in adversity. And I would argue, especially in adversity, or as I like to shorthand it, it's how we manage internally so that we can lead externally much better at work and even in life. And here's the thing, Diane, I think most of us intuitively understand that if you want to succeed at anything, at work or in life, you have to be able to self-regulate not only your emotions, but your thoughts and your behaviors. I think we know that, but here's the thing. Here's the news flash, if you will. To do that is really hard. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
It's what I believe makes it the leadership superpower of our times and the next EQ that's coming down the pipeline. Because when you can figure out how to do it, and we're going to talk about that today, it is truly like unlocking what I believe is the leadership superpower of our times.
Boy, you know what? I'm so glad you said that it's difficult, because that's what I was thinking when you were talking about it. And I get it. I mean, my gosh, if you can master this, then you really, you've got it figured out, especially, as you said, in times of adversity. And you've identified 6 mental muscles. Would you talk about them some, please?
Yeah, sure. There are 6 core mental muscles that go along with mental strength, Diane. Meaning if you can build up these muscles and create habits with these muscles, you're going to be much more mentally strong at the end of the day. They are fortitude, confidence, boldness, decision making, the ability to both make quality decisions and be decisive while you're at it, goal focus, the ability to stay focused yourself and keep your organization focused, and messaging, which is the ability to stay positive minded, even in the face of negativity, and so that you create and throw off a positive vibe, even to the troops around you with your messaging, even in the face of negativity. And all 6 of these core mental muscles, the common theme throughout all of them is that they require self-regulation, which makes sense when you think about it. So not only are they correlated with achievement, and I'll share a study I did that helps prove that, but they're also all correlate with self-regulation. And it makes sense. You need self-regulation, Diane, to be able to stay confident, to have fortitude and stay resilient. You need self-regulation to make smart decisions and not fall into all the biases that could enter when we want to make decisions. You need self-regulation to be able to stay bold and willing to take risks in your life and so on. So it's these 6 core mental muscles that equate to mental strength, and that, we could talk more about it, but if you can build up the habits for each one of these mental muscles, you are going to be mentally stronger at the end of the day.
So that makes perfect sense to me. I'm curious how someone goes about developing those muscles. Like I know how to develop my biceps, but.
Yeah, and it's a good analogy you bring up, Diane. I like equating mental muscles to physical muscles. So if you were to go to the gym and to become physically stronger, you wouldn't go to the gym and every single time you're there work every single muscle in your body. Right. You'd be exhausted. You'd stop that routine within like 3 days, right? Yeah. Wednesday is leg day, Friday is back day, or however you work it. It's similar with mental strength. You build it over time. First, understanding which mental muscles do you need to simply maintain and which ones do you really need to build up. And then you create your own mental strength training program over time so that you can keep, quote unquote, returning to that mental gym, figuring out a way and creating a routine to build those habits up over time. Now, the first step in doing that, Diane, is you have to understand what your baseline of mental strength is to begin with. And, here's the good news. The opposite of mentally strong is not mentally weak. We're all born with some level of, mental strength to build from. And you could do that, by using the tools in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. And it starts with the mental strength self-assessment that is in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. And here's the way it works, Diane. It's 50 questions that I work with a data scientist to really develop and make sure they all correlate directly to mental strength. It's 50 questions that you take. It takes about 15 minutes of quiet, introspective time. And when you're done answering this questionnaire, it produces an overall mental strength score. And it produces a score by mental muscle. So what's your score for fortitude? What's your score for confidence, for your decision-making, and so on? So you're able to step back and say, okay, what's my starting point for mental strength to work on? Then you begin to use the tools in the book to build each one of those 6 core mental muscles over time, ultimately leading up to the ability to become even mentally stronger. And it has a lot to do with habit building science, which I can get into in a moment. But does this all make sense to you, Diane? Is it tracking?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and so let me talk for a moment about what habit building science has to do with that. So here's the thing, Diane. I open by saying, we know we have to regulate our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So the arm around you, the help is habits. And if you can build the habits to become mentally stronger, that's the help that you can employ, because it is so hard. And in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, it is based largely on habit building science, meaning the following, Diane, there's over 50 plus tools in The Mentally Strong Leader. And those tools are all based on repetitions or systems and frameworks that you put in place to build the habit, because that's all a habit really is. It's a repetition of a behavior over and over again until it all almost becomes autopilot for you. Well, the tools in the book take the form of systems and frameworks to help you get in those repetitions. And they even include, each tool even includes helping you to understand what's the first small step that you should take to build that habit, because habit building science shows us that quite often habits break down when we don't even know where to start. And then each tool also includes a section called In Moments of Weakness that tells you, what do I do in moments of weakness when I feel myself breaking down, which often could happen, for example, with the confidence muscle. We might have a very strong, confident muscle, right? But then we go into a meeting with a boss. He or she says something that really throws us off. We don't feel so good about ourselves. And just like that, despite all our hard work, our confidence begins to spiral. Well, what do you do in moments of weakness like that for any one of the core mental muscles? Knowing that and having the habits to help you in place do that will help you build each muscle and become mentally stronger over time, right? Does that make sense?
Sure. Okay. Now, so you talked about confidence. I'm curious about boldness.
Yeah.
What are the habits associated with boldness?
Yeah, when I talk about boldness, Diane, what I'm really talking about is, paving a direct pathway to growth, right? When you're bold, it forces you to push your thinking. You have to get out of grooves. You got to push past discomfort, right? It sparks innovation and risk-taking and necessitates change. So that's what boldness is all about. And I'll give you an example of one tool in the book that helps you build a boldness habit, just to your question. It evolves kind of from this. Let me start by asking you a question first, Diane.
Sure.
Have you ever been to a casino? Yes or no?
Sure. Yes.
Sure. Right. I'm not talking about, by the way, during the workday when you're supposed to be doing your work. I'm talking about when you have spare time and you can get out and enjoy yourself. So with that in mind, think about the last time you were in a casino, and I'll tell you a very short story. I did a keynote for a casino company, right? Well, I'll just leave it at that, in Vegas. And I went out there the night before. I was going to do some leadership training and a keynote for them, actually on mental strength. And we were having dinner before, and we were just having a chat, and they were telling me about a really interesting throughput problem that they were having on the casino floor. Meaning, the ratio of people that were standing around watching one particular game on the casino floor to the percentage of people that were actually stepping up and putting money on the game and creating revenue, it was so out of whack that it was creating a throughput problem on the floor. It was an unproductive bottleneck on the floor. Now, let me first ask and see, do you want to hazard a guess as to what game this might be? And then I'll tell you which game it was. You want to take a wild guess if you had any game in mind, what that might be?
Gosh, I'll say poker.
Okay, well, poker is a close second to that.
Craps.
But craps is the answer.
Yeah, it's my favorite game.
Jump? Yeah, here's why, Diane. Because if you think about it, you probably have seen plenty of people standing around a craps table watching it,
sure,
but not actually stepping up. And for those of you that have never played craps, go Google it if you haven't. What does a craps table look like? And let me just tell you right now, it is a really confusing table. It really is. I play craps, Diane, at times, and I still don't know how to play craps.
Yeah, me too.
Because I have to tip the stickman or stickwoman every time to remind me where am I supposed to place my bets and what occasions. It's a very intimidating table to look at, right? Yes. So these casino owners had figured out that people just don't understand the rules of the game here. They're not willing to step up and roll the dice and take a risk with their money. Well, here's the thing, Diane. Meanwhile, back at the office, the same dynamic happens. When people don't understand the rules of risk-taking, they are not going to step up and take those very risks. They're not going to be bold. They won't literally, it's a saying that comes from Vegas, maybe you've heard it before, step up and roll the dice. It comes from the game of craps, which is a game of dice. So if they don't understand the rules, they're not going to do that. So I talk about one tool in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, which is it defines 20 questions that you can engage in with your organization. Or if you're not the boss, you can engage in with your boss to define the rules of risk-taking. For example, What are the what does a good risk look like? What does a bad risk look like? Who needs to approve what level of risk? What happens if you succeed or fail with a risk, and so on and so on. It's 20 questions that you can discuss with your organization to get super clear on the rules of risk taking. And when people understand the rules, they're a lot more likely to step up and take a risk, Diane. And that creates a bolder organization and a bolder you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about decision making? What's the connection between decision making and leadership?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you think about it, Diane, emotion and bias and undisciplined thinking, they're all the enemies of good decision making, right? So self-regulation skills that are all part of mental strength, they play a huge role here in giving you the courage and the conviction, maybe even just as importantly, to be decisive and to make really good decisions that propel you towards what you're trying to achieve. And I'll give you an example of a tool in the book here, again, The Mentally Strong Leader, that helps you build your decision-making muscle. As I mentioned, one of the biggest things that gets in the way of quality decisions, Diane, is when bias is introduced. And there's a tool in The Mentally Strong Leader, that I call the bias buster. It details 12 of the most common decision-making biases that we can fall into as traps that affect greatly our ability to make a good decision. And I'll give you an example. For example, we've all fallen victim to this one. I know I have. It's called confirmation bias, right? Which is the tendency to search for the information you want to support the decision that in some cases, you've already made. Well, of course, to stop confirmation bias, you have to invite people in to challenge your point of view, to disprove what you're inclined to already decide. You have to accept inevitabilities sooner and stop looking for data to support what you want to decide anyways, and instead accept facts and data that point to an obvious decision. So avoiding biases like the confirmation bias is key to building that decision-making muscle, and that's just one of them. I mean, there's the sunk cost bias, availability bias, loss aversion bias. And I describe all the most common decision-making biases that you can avoid to become even mentally stronger and build that decision-making muscle.
Got it. Thanks for that. So then let's talk about goals.
Sure.
One of the tools you suggest is the mental spotlight. What is that? How does that work?
Yes, the mental spotlight. Now, what's interesting about the mental spotlight is it's a tool that helps you individually increase your ability to stay focused in the moment. And I guess it makes sense, Diane, doesn't it? If I were to say, okay, are you a mentally strong person? And you were to say, yes. And then if I were to say, are you able to focus in the moment? If you said, no, I really struggle with that, that would fight the definition of mental strength. But the truth is, that happens to all of us at times where we just lose focus. There's too many distractions going on in the world. So I share a tool called the mental spotlight in the Mentally Strong Leader that it just works this way, kind of a couple easy steps. First, I want you to picture, Diane, you're sitting in a dark theater and you have a single spotlight shining on stage, okay? Mm-hmm. So what I want you to do, and that spotlight shining on stage is a metaphor and a tool, a framework, if you will, for how you're going to maintain focus. So first, you have to create the dark theater environment, which means you have to remove distractions, which most often for us means setting our phone aside, right? That's the biggest distractor of all. It means at work, if you have to, putting on earphones. It means putting up a sign that says, I'm not to be disturbed right now. If you work at home, it means creating a space where it's clearly delineated for workspace, that when I'm in this space is for work. When I leave this space, I no longer work in that space. So you have to create your own dark theater environment first by mindfully limiting intentions. Okay, now to that metaphor of the spotlight shining on the stage. I want you to picture yourself, Diane, being at the top of that beam of light, the very top, where it's at its narrowest part. It's narrow here because this is where you're deciding what you need to focus on. And the truth is that many of us, we don't have a problem focusing per se, Diane. We have a problem deciding what to focus on. We jump from task to task or try to mentally multitask, which we think we're great at, but we're really not. Now, I could talk all day about the data that shows how crappy we are actually at effectively multitasking. But now, I want you to stay within that beam of light, right? Now we're going to write it downward. As you're writing that beam of light downward towards the stage, I want you to maintain the intensity and sharpness of your focus on your task. Meaning, if your attention strays outside that beam of light, away from what you're trying to concentrate on, simply forgive yourself and move right back within that focused beam. So you're trying to get work done. You're picturing the mental spotlight. You're in the middle of that beam of light now on your way towards the stage. And you notice you're starting to, I'm going to check my phone. I'm going to check email. I'm going to think about whether or not I need to pick up milk on the way home from work today. That's okay. You're drifting outside that beam of light. Just gently nudge yourself back into that focused beam of light, which is your metaphor and your friend. Now, the last part, you're going to ride this beam of light all the way down, maintaining intensity and sharpness of focus on your task. And then you're going to stop when you hit the stage, at the end of the beam of light where it's at its absolute widest, where it's a circle, right? This circle, this is where you're really locked in a state of flow, mentally surrounding your task. It's here that you successfully drive your task to completion. And what I found is teaching people this metaphor over the years, Diane, where you just keep picturing the mental spotlight. I've even had clients that have gone out and bought a little statue of a spotlight to remind them, stay within the spotlight until they get to the stage where it's round and I'm surrounding my work in a state of flow and I can complete the work. I found it to be a very powerful metaphor to help people maintain focus on their goals. Try it. I think it could help you too, Diane. It really works.
Listen, I'm good. Scott, this is so great. It's such interesting information. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Will you tell the listeners how they can find the book and you?
Yeah, sure. You can go to scottmautz.com and you can learn about the workshops I give on mental strength, and all the leadership topics I talk about. I also keynote. You can learn about my LinkedIn courses there as well. And I put together a little kind of a gift for your listeners today, Diane. If they are interested in a 60-page free PDF, within that PDF, it includes the mental strength questionnaire I was talking about earlier, and prompts or questions to help you get the most out of the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. If you're interested in that free 60-page PDF, you can go to scottmautz.com/mentally strong gift.
Mentally Strong Gift?
You got it. No spaces in between that, right?
Okay.
scottmautz.com/mentally strong gift.
Okay, great. Great. I'll make sure that's in the show notes. Well, as I said, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you. You are who we're doing this for. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, a production of Evergreen Podcasts. Discover more episodes of this podcast and explore others at evergreenpodcast.com. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And if you're looking to get your sales strategy headed in the right direction, pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We out.